This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream. The stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope everybody's doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. And happy Easter to those of you out there that are celebrating. And acknowledgments to those of you that aren't here because you're doing Easter stuff. But for those of you that are here, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you, good morning to you. And who's joining me on this beautiful Sunday morning? The Alexander. Good morning, Mike R. Good morning, Kiever Dam. Good morning to you. And thank you, Kiever Dam, as always, for providing the link to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society donation page, guys, that's pinned to the top of the chat box. If you have the opportunity to donate to that, please do so. But even if you can't, if you can share that out on social media, that would be appreciated. And elsewise, thank you for thinking about that. And Kiever Dam, thank you for providing the link. As always, Mike Savage, Blarg, Advocatus Diaboli, good morning. Who else is here? Jill Powers, the River Daughter, good morning to you. TF Yorks, good morning. Old Guy Gamer, good morning. Brian Morissette, hello. Bridget, good morning. Tier Alexander, hello. John Trioxin, good morning. Juliet, hello. Who else is here? Unfair Ophelia, good morning. Fostonia, hello. Anybody else? Oh, Peter's here. Hello, Peter. Somnamnul Nation is here. And the Blakester, good morning. And I think that's everybody I see. If I missed you, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, good morning to you. Got a lot of stories today, a lot of disparate stuff. I do have some stories that are layovers from 2 Sundays back because I didn't do a Sunday stream last week because I needed a break. I had overbooked myself and overwhelmed myself, but they're still relevant. Some of them may be superfluous. We'll find out together. Let's start off with our favorite friends over at the IRS. You love the IRS, don't you? I know I do. Because we just had tax day about 5 days ago. But the head of the IRS is ousted in Treasury's power struggle with Elon Musk. Elon Musk did it, guys. Elon Musk kicked out the head of the IRS. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent complained to President Trump that the acting commissioner had been installed without his knowledge. Ooh, okay. President Trump has replaced the acting commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service after his appointment just days earlier set off a power struggle between Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and the billionaire Elon Musk, 5 people with knowledge of the change said Friday. Mr. Bessent's deputy, Michael Falkender, will be the new acting leader replacing Gary Shapley. Shapley? Shapley. How shapely could he be? The Treasury Department confirmed on Friday. Mr. Falkender will be the 3rd acting leader of the agency this week. Pick a lane, guys. Mr. Bessent had complained to Mr. Trump this week that he's President Trump. He could distinguish that way, whatever. Complained this week to Mr. Trump this week that Mr. Musk had done an end run around him to get Mr. Shapley installed as the interim head of the IRS, even though the tax collection agency reports to Mr. Bessent. The people familiar with the situation said. I have to admit, I haven't kept up on all the shenanigans going on with power struggles in the White House and elsewise. How does Elon Musk install anybody into federal departments? I must have missed that part somewhere. They spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations. Okay. The clash was the latest instance of Mr. Musk's influence in the Trump administration that has alarmed top officials. It was also the latest upheaval at the tax agency, with much of its staff pushed out or quitting. Mr. Trump earlier this week called for the IRS to revoke Harvard University's tax-exempt status after the school refused to impose sweeping changes demanded by the administration. An IRS spokeswoman declined to comment on the leadership changes. Okay, well that's meaningless then. Mr. Shapley, a longtime IRS agent, gained fame among conservatives after he claimed that the Justice Department had slow-walked its investigation into Hunter Biden's taxes. Mr. Musk's Department of Government Efficiency pushed Mr. Shapley's appointment through White House channels, but Mr. Bessent was not consulted or asked for his blessing, according to those with knowledge of the dynamic. According to those with knowledge of the night, familiar with the matter. Mr. Besant then got Mr. Trump's approval to unwind the decision within days, they said. Mr. Shapley had been working from the IRS commissioner's office as late as Friday morning. Okay, so the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing in the White House. Great. Quote, trust must be brought back to the IRS, and I am fully confident that Deputy Secretary Michael Falkender is the right man for that moment, Mr. Besant said in a statement Friday afternoon. The position of IRS Commissioner will be filled in an acting capacity, while former Representative Billy Long awaits Senate approval for the role. Curiouser and curiouser. In his statement, Mr. Besant praised Mr. Shapley for his, quote, passion and thoughtfulness, and said that he remains an important advisor. Mr. Shapley and another IRS critic of the Hunter Biden tax investigation, Joseph Ziegler, will be assigned to senior roles at the Treasury Department or the IRS. Okay, Carolyn Leavitt, the White House press secretary, did not address the details of the dispute, but said, quote, it's no secret President Trump has put together a team of people who are incredibly passionate about the issues impacting our country, unquote. I mean, there's being passionate, and then there's doing an end run around the chain of command without telling the people in charge. Not a good look. Quote, disagreements are a normal part of any healthy policy process, Ms. Leavitt said, and ultimately everyone knows they serve at the pleasure of President Trump, unquote. Yeah, but we're, good gravy. Mr. Trump has picked Mr. Shapley to run the IRS on Tuesday after the previous interim head, Melanie Krause, chose to resign. Ms. Krause quit after the Treasury Department agreed to use IRS data to help Immigration and Customs Enforcement deport undocumented immigrants. Treasury officials had hoped to persuade Ms. Krause, who had aligned with the administration on other issues, to stay in her job until at least May 15th. I wonder what difference that would have made. While she had signed up for the administration's deferred resignation program, Ms. Krause remained in the role until Mr. Musk forced the change on Tuesday and helped install Mr. Shapley. Does nobody call anybody else? I mean, like, if the second guy or the second lady at the IRS or whatever, or just like an intern or something, see something going on, does anybody say, hey, Mr. Besant, do you know about this thing and this stuff? I mean, where's the lines of communication here? The feud between Mr. Musk and Mr. Besant went public late Thursday night when Mr. Musk amplified a social media post from a far-right researcher, Laura Loomer, accusing Mr. Besant of colluding with a Trump hater. Okay, troubling, Mr. Musk wrote about Mr. Besant's meeting with John Hope Bryant, the chief executive of the nonprofit Operation Hope. Mr. Bryant is working on financial literacy effort with Treasury officials. Okay, Ms. Loomer had called that meeting a vetting failure. You know, I don't know that I'd be putting Laura Loomer anywhere near power. I don't understand how it is that she became as prominent and influential as she is. The only thing I remember about Laura Loomer is that she was lying about her tires being blown out on the freeway many years ago, as it was some sort of like attempt on her life when she just had terrible tires. Anyway, Ms. Loomer helped push out several officials from the National Security Council earlier this month. Great. After first attacking some of them online and then meeting with Mr. Trump in the Oval Office and presenting him with a list of those she deemed disloyal. Mr. Trump's decision to side with Mr. Besant in the dispute over the IRS comes as Mr. Musk has been a less visible presence around Mr. Trump in recent weeks, and officials across the administration say he has been less of a headache than they had found him to be in the first several weeks of the second Trump presidency. Mr. Musk's moves to secure advisors in high-level posts across key agencies as part of his government-shrinking doge and his methods to try to wrangle federal workers have roiled some cabinet secretaries, even those who favor his overall goal of reform. Mr. Trump still speaks warmly of Mr. Musk, and Mr. Trump's advisors have taken note that the billionaire has said he wants to donate another $100 million through political entities controlled by the president's team. But the president has also privately acknowledged that Mr. Musk has made missteps. Mr. Trump said that he believes Mr. Musk will return to his private companies before too long. So he's, slowly pushing him out. As a special government employee, Mr. Musk is allotted 130 days of time on the job. But if he works part-time, he may be able to extend his time in government. Mr. Musk, who has claimed to hold the record for paying the largest individual tax bill, congratulations, has deployed several members of DOGE to the IRS. His team has pushed for steep staff cuts at the tax agency and canceled scores of contracts with outside technology vendors. One of the Doge members of the IRS, Gavin Kliger, was recently pushed out of the agency, according to 3 people familiar with the situation. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the matter. Special government employees and everything, I don't know, man. Elon Musk, one thing, but really, you're taking advice from Laura Loomer on who to hire and who not to hire, and I don't understand. I done get it. Mr. Basant is not the first Trump advisor whom Mr. Musk has attacked publicly. In the past 2 weeks, Mr. Musk used his social media site X to criticize Peter Navarro. Well, I've used Mr. Musk's social media site X to criticize a ton of people. And to criticize Peter Navarro, a top Trump trade advisor who is a vocal proponent of tariffs. Mr. Musk, whose company Tesla will be harmed by the tariffs, has opposed the president's policy. And yet, somehow, Trump keeps going forward with it. So, if individuals within the same administration disagree with each other publicly, I don't have a problem with it. If everybody's in lockstep all the time, it gets kind of creepy. At the same time, Elon Musk is just like a temporary employee, so who cares? It's just, Mr. Musk initially opposed Mr. Basant becoming Treasury Secretary and promoted the candidacy of Howard Lutnick, who detests Mr. Basant and competed with him for the role. Mr. Lutnick ultimately became the Commerce Secretary. Okay. Ahead of the Treasury selection, Mr. Musk posted on X that Mr. Basant was the, quote, business as usual choice, and that Mr. Lutnick would, quote, actually enact change, unquote. Mr. Trump ultimately selected Mr. Basant and told advisors he thought Mr. Lutnick had tried to steer the transition process towards his own selection for the Treasury job, according to 2 people with direct knowledge of his comments. Bickering. Jumping the line in the chain of command, one hand not knowing what the other is doing. It almost sounds like this is a government operation. But of all the things there that probably irk me the most, it's the Laura Loomer aspect of this. How is it that nut job has become an influential force in the presidency? I don't understand. I do not understand. Some people are bewildered at Elon Musk's prominence in the administration. Okay, maybe. But Laura Loomer? Good gravy. T.R. Alexander, just because she claims to have suggested the hiring doesn't make it true. I can claim to have suggested this article to you. Does it make it true? Well, if she's been in the White House and she made a list of people and they all subsequently got pushed out, I don't know. Some things might be coincidences. Also, Kirsten Scholl over on the X Machine. Good morning. Toot Sweet. Good morning. Bishop. Hello. Anybody else I missed? Walter Tomaszewski. Good morning, Walter Tomaszewski. And Spider-Man. Good morning. Let's see. Abdicatus. Is his 120, 130 days up yet? I don't know. Well, we're not yet 100 days into Trump's presidency yet, or this term, so I think he's still got a month or so left. I think. Something like that. Roundabouts. I guess time will tell. But there you go. Yes, the IRS is having musical chairs on who's in charge. I know some people probably don't mind for the sake of the taxes and everything else. May 30th. Okay, so May 30th will be the technical end of Elon Musk's term as special government employee unless some part-time advisory deal comes out. And at that point, he's like anybody else that's associated with the White House that's not a direct employee, an advisor, that kind of thing. But moving on. Let's see. Now, this story is a little... Let's see, which one I want to do first. Let's do this one first. So this is the one that I meant to put up on the previous episode of Sunday Stream. I have a more recent article that I think talks about this in a more general sense, but if that ends up being duplicative, I'll just skip it. But yeah, I found this. The University of Washington and Seattle University say student visas canceled by federal government without notice. So if you're here on a student visa, suddenly it was canceled with no notice. Now, my question would be, does the federal government, are they required to give notice? I don't know. The University of Washington said the visas of 5 current students and 4 recent graduates in post-graduation training were canceled by the federal government without prior notice to the university or the students. University officials said in a statement there was no indication the visas were canceled due to activism or other protected free speech. They also said they were unaware of any immigration officials coming to UW campuses in connection with the visas. The university said on Monday that it will continue to support and provide the resources needed for the students to succeed. But even after they're in the country illegally? Okay. Quote, "We are deeply concerned about the well-being of these students and graduates and are working to support them. International students and scholars are essential and valued members of our university, and they contribute immensely to our community, state, and nation," the statement said. The school said the federal government's Student and Exchange Visitor Information System, or SEVIS, shows the cancellations were due to an immigration status violation, but no further details were provided. Okay. In such situations, a UW campus International Student Services office would quickly contact the afflicted students to provide them with resources such as legal services and mental health and academic support. All right. School officials said they have been checking SEVIS records daily because the federal government is not telling universities about student status changes. In February, dozens of demonstrators rallied on UW's Seattle campus to protest immigration arrests and detentions happening in Western Washington and called for protections for migrant students on campus. Late Tuesday, Seattle University also said 3 graduate students had visas canceled. Doesn't that mean they're pretty much have to get out of the country? I'm going to claim layman expertise on this, but if you don't have a visa, if your visa is invalid, if your invitation to be here is invalid, don't you have to leave? Or what's the procedure with that? Governor Bob Ferguson. Oh yeah, Governor Bob Ferguson. He's holding a big DEI like conference in the first part of May, and it's all on Zoom. And I'm hoping. I'm waiting for registration. I'm wondering if I can get myself registered to be able to attend this thing. Because registration starts on like May 5th or 15th or something. I'm going to check on it again. And given what we talked about Oregon the other week on, or earlier this week on DEI Death Watch, I know Washington has always been, Chaz Chop and all that stuff. If I can get in on that conference, just to listen, maybe record some footage, I don't know. I want to see if I can get in there or find some footage if they actually broadcast it. That'd be great too. Anyway, Governor Bob Ferguson had a long-planned meeting with UW President Anna Marie Koss on Tuesday and issued a statement to Como News that read, quote, "Students come from all over the world to study at Washington's top-tier colleges and universities. I spoke with President Koss, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, President Koss today about the revocation of visas for UW students. We are closely monitoring the situation and seeking more information." Well, if their visas are revoked, they have to go, right? Am I missing something? The UW International Student Services Department suggested the situation involved F1 and J1 visas and that, quote, "If you need to travel internationally, carefully review our travel outside the U.S. information to be prepared for requirements and potential delays or challenges you could encounter upon reentry." Well, I mean, if you have a valid visa, you are also encouraged to register your international travel with Global Affairs. Okay, UW spokesperson Victor Balta declined a request for an on-camera interview and asked for written questions about the situation. Okay, he added, quote, "The university has no role in removing students from campus. To my knowledge, no one has been physically removed from campus, and the university would not be involved in any such process," unquote. When asked in written form what the students were studying, he replied in an email, quote, "Federal privacy laws prohibit us from sharing specific details about an individual student records." Okay. So what happens to these students now that their visas have been revoked? They just get to stay on campus? Is the university, I mean, harboring an illegal immigrant at this point? I don't know. But there is a story that was published just in the last day or two that talks about the subject in more general terms that might tell us more. This comes from CNN. International students are being told by email that their visas are revoked and that they must self-deport. What to know? And this is from April 19th. That other story is from about a week ago. For hundreds of thousands of people every year who dream of studying or researching in the United States, a student visa is the golden ticket. And they're all Charlie Bucket. Now, for hundreds of people already at U.S. colleges and universities, it is turning into a one-way ticket back to their home countries as President Donald Trump's administration continues an aggressive effort to revoke visas and push academics out of the country, whether voluntarily or in handcuffs. Oh, okay. How many academics have they handcuffed? What? Academics. Okay. Visa programs in the U.S. are complicated with many requirements and conditions, and the State Department says it has broad powers to terminate them. Okay. How do student visas work? That's what I've been wondering. Okay, coming to the United States for anything but tourism usually means wading through an alphabet soup of visa types, more than 24 for people who do not intend to become permanent residents of the U.S. But only 3 apply to people from other countries who plan to study in the United States. An F1 visa is used by students attending an academic institution like a high school or college. Okay, the much less common M1 visa applies to students in a vocational program. Okay, I'm already getting bored, but continue. To accept students with those visas, an educational institution must first be certified by the Department of Homeland Security's Immigration and Customs Enforcement Unit, or ICE, through the Student and Exchange Visitor Program known as CEVIP. S-E-V-P. In its disputes with Harvard University, the Trump administration has threatened to decertify the university from CEVIP unless it agrees to give the Department of Homeland Security detailed disciplinary records on its international students, part of a broader White House effort to bring elite U.S. colleges into lockstep with its political ideology. You mean vetting people coming into the United States claiming to be students is a bad thing? Is that part of a political... Is vetting someone coming into the country part of a political ideology of some kind? How? Okay, if Harvard is dropped from the program, it would not be able to accept students on F1 visas, with existing F1 students traditionally allowed to seek a transfer to another U.S. school. Okay. Additionally, many people with educational plans come to the U.S. on a J1 exchange visitor visa. This path includes not just an academic study, but also a, quote, cultural component, unquote, supervised by a U.S. organization approved by the State Department, a list that includes thousands of educational institutions. Professors, researchers, and physicians typically come to the U.S. on a J1 visa. Okay. Although it comes with more strings attached than the F1 visa, some students prefer the J1 because it allows their spouses to work in the U.S., said Lisa Murray, exchange program director with the nonprofit American Immigration Council. Okay, so there are a lot of strings attached to the J1 that is preferred. Quote, many prestigious scholarships, fellowships, or grants are specifically tied to J1 sponsorship, Murray told CNN. All 3 types of educational visas use a government online database called SEVIS, as we talked about previously, the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System, to allow colleges and universities to provide legally required information to the State Department and the Department of Homeland Security about international students at their institutions. That information includes the student's address and confirmation of their academic work. And it should not include information on any previous disciplinary issues they've had? Because that's part of a political ideology? I'm still waiting for that clarification. Quote, U.S. higher education institutions take the responsibility of enrolling international students and complying with SEVP requirements very seriously and understand the consequences of not doing so, unquote. Fanta Aw, CEO of the Nonprofit Association of International Educators, said in a statement. Okay, quote, institutions have codes of conduct and disciplinary measures in place to address student conduct which may result in terminating a student's SEVIS record as outlined by SEVP, just as there are established grounds for the government or the institution to withdraw its certification, unquote. Okay, so far you're telling me the federal government has broad discretion to revoke visas. And when can a student visa be revoked? While a person's legal status, their ability to remain in the United States, is determined by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, part of the Department of Homeland Security, visas are issued by the State Department and can be revoked for a number of reasons, including violating laws and providing false information on an application. Anything else? The State Department's Foreign Affairs Manual makes clear a visa holder does not have to be formally charged with any crime before a visa can be terminated. I think we can roll credits on that one, can't we? I'll read that again. The State Department's Foreign Affairs Manual makes clear a visa holder does not have to be formally charged with any crime before a visa can be terminated. And so what is the problem? If this is established policy prior to the Trump administration, then the Trump administration is not doing anything that is outside of its powers. Quote, I didn't mean to click on that. Let's try that again. Quote, the department may revoke a visa when it receives derogatory information directly from another U.S. government agency, including a member of the intelligence or law enforcement community, the manual says. Yeah, but it can also just kind of do it any time, right? Secretary of State Marco Rubio has terminated hundreds of visas under a rarely used provision, and yet a provision that exists. I love how they keep bringing up this rarely used law. Like, well, its frequency of use doesn't make it any less a law, or a provision in this case. But anyway, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has terminated hundreds of visas under a rarely used provision that allows for revocation if a person's presence in the United States, quote, would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States, unquote. And of course, that language is ambiguous enough that you could practically apply anything of your own choosing. Okay? In the move's wake seems to be a two-tiered system to get affected students to quickly leave the country. Two-tiered system? Okay. First, the State Department revokes a visa. Then ICE tells the student to leave immediately, or at least in one case, fines and detains them. All right. Tufts University doctoral candidate Rumeysa Ozturk was confronted last month by federal agents on a street in Somerville, Massachusetts, and handcuffed as she shrieked in fear and confusion, as seen in surveillance video viewed around the world. Though Ozturk's F1 visa had been revoked 4 days earlier, she hadn't gotten notice of it before her arrest, says a petition filed by her lawyers in federal court in Boston challenging the legality of her detention. Her visa was revoked 4 days earlier. She hadn't gotten notice. Okay. Ozturk was, quote, engaged in activities in support of Hamas, a Department of Homeland Security spokesperson has said, without specifying the alleged activities. Her lawyers say she is unfairly being punished for speaking out in favor of Palestinian rights. How did she speak out in favor of Palestinian rights? Was she chanting from the river to the sea, up and down a street by any chance? Many foreign students now targeted for deportation say they have done nothing criminal or controversial in the U.S. other than publicly support the Palestinian cause in the war in Gaza between Israel and Hamas. I mean, if you come to our country and you start cheering on terrorists, if you're a guest here and you're like, yeah, I support a terrorist organization and slaughtering people, you might be walking on thin ice, what can I tell you? And removal orders for students who have not just affected visa holders. Oh, okay. Mahmoud Khalil and Mohsen Madawi, pro-Palestinian activists at Columbia University, are now fighting deportation after the State Department ordered revocation of their permanent legal resident status, commonly known as a green card, and arrested them in March and April. Again, I'm not an expert, but I have a sneaking suspicion that a green card is not a get-out-of-jail-free card for other activities. And that you're still, more or less, still a guest here. But anyway, reasons given for ejecting students go beyond protests. Okay. More than 100 international students who have had their visas revoked claim the government is, quote, stripping them of their ability to pursue their studies and maintain employment in the United States and risking their arrest, detention, and deportation, unquote, a lawsuit filed on their behalf in federal court in Georgia states. Federal court in Georgia states. Okay, I don't know. That sounded weird for a second there. Yes, if you get your visa revoked, that does strip you of your ability to pursue your that means you can't stay in the country anymore at that point, as we've already shown. So that claim it checks out. It checks out. Some of the students targeted never were protesters and or charged with a crime, plaintiff's attorney Dustin Baxter said. Well, if you'll recall from about 4 paragraphs above, you don't need to have been charged with a crime to equate to a revocation. Quote, not only would they revoke the person's student visa, even if there was no conviction, which is not necessary, by the way, if there was just an arrest, and sometimes there wasn't even an arrest, there was just an encounter and maybe a ticket, they would revoke the student visa, Baxter said. Well, unless there's something in the law and policies that says otherwise, apparently they can do that. So, some foreign students say the first notice they received about their visa revocation was not from ICE, but their school. Okay, well, tell me something, CNN. And I honestly don't know. I'm not trying to be too snarky about this, but is you know how you have to be like served something? Someone has to actually hand you a document when it comes to like a lawsuit or you're being served, that kind of thing. There has to be someone who can attest you physically received notice that you're being sued, that someone's taking an action against you, that kind of thing. Is there an equivalent requirement when it comes to revoking visas before you can be, or actions can be taken on you to have you deported? Like someone comes up and says, okay, your visa's been revoked, you're being deported. I received no notice. Oh, I apologize. I'll come back in 24 hours after you've been notified, which I've just done, that you've had your visa revoked to remove you from the country. I mean, is there some requirement that notice has to be received and acknowledged before someone can be removed or actions can be taken upon them? Is that it? Let's see. Over in the chat, I just saw this. Advocate Diablo, much like with an arrest warrant, the detainment is the informing. Yeah, that's my question. They keep talking about this like, why? Nobody told me I had my visa revoked. Do you need to have some kind of acknowledgement? Let's see. Meanwhile, many universities got no formal notice of their students' visa revocations and found out only by seeing a student's name in government records, school officials say. I ask, what is the requirement for notification? To whom? Whether it be the visa holder or the school where they're going to. After 4 students and 2 recent graduates of Stanford University in Stanford? Oh no! Oh God, not Stanford. After 4 students and 2 recent graduates of Stanford University in California had their student visas rescinded, the, quote, university learned of the revocations during a routine check of the SEVIS database, it said in a statement on April 4th. Okay. That marks a major change from the way that system historically has been used, an immigration attorney told CNN. Do tell. Quote, up until Trump took office, it was really up to the designated school officers to initiate that revocation in SEVIS, said Jeff Joseph, president-elect of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. What we're seeing now is that ICE is doing it themselves. Is that illegal? You guys, I mean, I appreciate, I guess, being informed of the chain of events and things happening, but I guess my question is, what's the controversy? The State Department has the right to revoke a visa seemingly for any reason they choose, and they aren't seemingly required to have accepted notice of such a change, either by the institution a student is attending or the student themselves. Because if it were required under law that these things take place, I'm sure you would be mentioning it. The fact that you're not makes me think that, well, you may not like that this is happening, but everybody's staying within the lines of their abilities. Since Trump's second term began, the administration has put out warnings that the government has its eyes on people living in the U.S. on visas. Well, okay. I mean, that's some prior notice right there. Quote, U.S. visa screening does not stop after a visa is issued, the State Department said in March in a Facebook post. We continually check visa holders to ensure they follow all U.S. laws and immigration rules, and we will revoke their visas and deport them if they don't, unquote. Traditionally, the expiration of an exchange visitor visa does not mean a person is immediately considered to be in the country illegally. Okay, now this gets to what I was asking before. In fact, the State Department's website advises J-1 visa holders, quote, if your visa has expired and you do not plan to travel outside of the U.S., you do not need to renew the visa. ICE tells F-1 visa holders, quote, you can stay in the United States on an expired F-1 visa as long as you maintain your student status. Okay. But a number of students who have been told via email by the Department of Homeland Security their visas were revoked are getting the message they must self-deport within 7 days if they want to avoid being arrested. Quote, do not attempt to remain in the United States. The federal government will find you, one such email says, according to Boston immigration attorney Nicole Micharoni, the San Francisco treat, who said she received the message apparently intended for a client. Okay, well, here's my question. Traditionally, that was the word that jumped out at me as I read that previous paragraph. Traditionally. So is this law or is it simply policy? And if it's policy, does the government have the ability to change it at their whim? While Rubio has publicly touted efforts to revoke student visas, the State Department has been tight-lipped about individual decisions. Quote, due to privacy considerations and visa confidentiality, we generally will not comment on department actions with respect to specific cases, an agency spokesperson told CNN in response to questions about several cases. Before a person in ICE custody can be deported, several steps can be taken, including exercising the right in many cases to petition the Board of Immigration Appeals. But the Supreme Court ruled unanimously in 2024 that visa revocations are almost never appealable. Okay, then. Quote, Congress granted the Secretary of State broad authority to revoke an approved visa petition at any time for what he deems to be good and sufficient cause, unquote. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote. Well, if even Justice Jackson isn't coming to your defense on this one, I think you might be sunk. A student visa holder, quote, who violates a term or condition, unquote, of their legal status cannot apply for another visa until being out of the country for at least 5 years, according to State Department guidelines. Okay, so again, this all seems to be an article posted in outrage over what's happening, and yet at every turn, I'm not finding a problem. Legally, procedurally, or otherwise. So, how many student visas does the U.S. approve? I don't really care. And that's the end of the article. Okay, so, same points and questions I had at the beginning remain at the end. I kept hearing about, this is such, they weren't given any notice. They don't have to be given any notice. Traditionally, they can stay in the country after, is a tradition a law? I'm not meaning to be nitpicky here, but this is where the rubber meets the road on these things. Is the government violating the law in some way, shape, or form when revoking these visas and or notifying people to self-deport or you will be deported? If they're not, then petition your congressperson to change the law, I guess. Satsu 2 cents! Everybody, did you know it's Satsu's birthday today? Yes, it is indeed Satsu Day. Satsu's born on 4/20. A lot of implications there, depending on how you look at it. But on this day particularly, it's his birthday. And so, when it's somebody's birthday around here, especially when it's Satsu's birthday, well, I gotta do a thing. So 1 and a 2.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Happy birthday, dear Satsu. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Satsu. And many more on Channel 4. Scooby-Doo on Channel 2. Hope you're having a good day and hope you get some good presents. Holy cats, Faustonia! Thank you so much. That's very generous of you. These stories of visa holders' rights tires me. If I'm invited to your house and I decide to take a dump on your coffee table, should I not be surprised that I lose my invitation? Do not other countries kick out Americans? Yeah, this has been, I mean, if you go back to my playlist on my channel for expatriate games, so it's so weird, or maybe not so weird, that the exact same arguments and complaints and attempts to justify all this nonsense are the same now as they were 9 some odd years ago. If you're in a country as a guest, then most countries have every right to say, we would like you to leave now. Even if I don't, quote unquote, take a dump on your coffee table. If I'm just tired of you being here, or I'd rather you not be here, just say, hey, nice that you visited, time to go. And you may feel that it's justified or not, you may feel it's unfair or not, but when you've got a sovereign nation and they're trying to protect their borders, or they're just, whatever, and you're here as a guest, you're not entitled to stay. Unless the law says otherwise, and that's what I kept looking for in those articles. Where does the law say that someone with a visa is entitled to stay no matter what? And if there are conditions for what they can and cannot be kicked out for, well then by all means, tell me why the government is doing something illegal. Now, let me make it clear that just because something is not illegal does not necessarily make it ethical. So I don't know, because we have to look at each individual case. But in the overall, if they've got no real claim under law in not being kicked out when you're here as a guest, then talk to your congressperson. Oh, except you don't have a congressperson because you're not a resident here. You're not a citizen. You're just a visitor. But if you want to see these laws change, you have to petition Congress. A lot of interesting things going on right now. A lot of interesting complaints and arguments. I just want to briefly, this is an aside. This is something that's been bugging me the last couple of days in general. Well, not just the last couple of days, but for a while now. The case of, let me see if I get this right, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So for not to date this series any more than I already have. So there's this guy, a Maryland father is all he was. But a guy who had been in the country 14 years illegally, has a wife and a child, and is also a member of MS-13, and had a restraining order brought up against him because he was hitting his wife, and was caught smuggling people across the border, and all types of other stuff. But he has no criminal record. He's completely clean and everything else, and it's a big affront to everybody's, picadillos or something that he got deported to a El Salvadoran prison. That's not what I want to talk about, even though that's enough. 2 things I do want to talk about, though. One, this constant refrain, like I mentioned before, if you go back to my playlist that has videos and stories from 9 some odd years ago, somehow the idea of avoiding law enforcement for a period of time while being in the country illegally is a mark in your favor, or should be considered as such. Because even if you take away the specifics of this Abrego Garcia guy, I cannot count how many times I've heard the refrain, this person has lived in our country for a decade and has no criminal record. And somehow that's like an affront to our senses and our pearl clutching. That such a person could be ejected from the country. They have no criminal record. They've been here for decades. You know, if I successfully avoid law enforcement for a period of time after or in the commission of a crime, I guess then I should be forgiven simply on the basis that I was so wily as to not be caught for a while. I don't know. Somehow that doesn't seem to me as something to be, applauded for. But there's something else that was happening this week, and I don't know exactly how to contextualize it. Maybe I'm going to articulate it badly, but let me try to give an attempt here. In the case of Abrego Garcia, He was arrested. He was deported. He was taken to an El Salvadoran prison and suddenly becomes the poster child for all things of executive power abuse by the Trump administration, specifically as claimed by the Democrats. Now, again, I'm not a legal expert. How much or how little Trump violated, quote unquote, the law or executive powers, I couldn't say. I'll just say that the executive has been granted excessive powers and delegated so much authority over the decades by Congress that at this point, them complaining about Trump having these powers should be a complaint to Congress and not necessarily Trump. But that aside, after he was arrested and deported and put in this prison, he was unseen for many, many, many days. And I started seeing individuals both in the press and in politics and on Twitter saying things like, he's dead by now. You just know he's been killed. That's why they don't show him. That's why they don't talk about him. They already killed him. They already executed him. And yet, the sense I got from these claims of concern didn't seem to me so much as sincere humanitarian motivation, so much as, we really hope this guy is dead so we can use it as an own against Trump. That's what I kind of got. And I got other sort of sensations, echoes of the time during the lockdown when the, how shall I put this for the safety of YouTube, when the pharmaceutical question came up. And people from both sides of said question seemingly were giddy over the possibility that somebody famous or someone in particular had lost their life or become ill because they decided on the opposite side of their position when it came to the pharmaceutical question. You had these little death cults starting to arise for whichever side of the question you were on, hoping and praying that somebody would die so you could prove your point and be vindicated in your position. That's kind of what I got a sense of in this last week of people like, boy, I hope this guy's dead. Oh, wait, sorry, no, I don't hope he's dead. He's probably dead. You know that's why they're not showing him. And then, of course, he comes out and visits with Chris Van Hollen, who travels halfway across the world to have margaritas with a gang member and a wife beater. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It is such a wacky, wacky time to be observing politics and things. But anyway, yeah, I get really creeped out. Even I understand that this guy isn't exactly some kind of harps or halos individual. Given his history, given his reputation, I don't think a whole lot of people would be all that sad if he was suddenly not alive anymore. That's not me advocating for his death. At the same time, though, hoping that someone dies in order to prove a point for your political side, yeah, you don't. No, just don't. You know, let nature take its course or the justice system do whatever it's going to do. But like sort of salivating at the notion that there's going to be a human sacrifice for the sake of your position politically, not a good look, no matter where you are on the compass of things. But anyway, that's just a tangential thought on current events. Let's move on, shall we? Let's see. Which one do I want to do next? Oh, let's do Russia. I did have Putin on the thumbnail. I better talk about Russia. Because apparently, today, yesterday, or otherwise, there's a truce in the Ukraine. Ukraine wary of Putin's Easter truce and says it will reciprocate only a genuine ceasefire. Is this what's going on? Ukraine said it would reciprocate any genuine ceasefire by Moscow, but voiced skepticism after Russian President Vladimir Putin announced a temporary Easter truce in Ukraine starting Saturday. Okay, so that was yesterday. Or maybe that was 2 days ago, depending on the time zones. I don't know. The announcement from Kyiv. Kyiv? I didn't know you were in the news, Kiever Dam. Oh, wait. The announcement from Kyiv came as Russia and Ukraine conducted their largest prisoner exchange since Moscow's full-scale invasion started over 3 years ago. Putin announced a temporary Easter ceasefire in Ukraine starting Saturday, citing humanitarian reasons. According to the Kremlin, the ceasefire will last from 6 p.m. Moscow time on Saturday to midnight following Easter Sunday. Putin offered no details on how the ceasefire would be monitored or whether it would cover airstrikes or ongoing ground battles that rage around the clock. Ukrainian president? That's when you have a very friendly leader of a country. It's a president. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said if Russia is genuinely ready to observe a full and unconditional ceasefire, Ukraine will mirror that approach and strike only in defense. He said such a gesture, particularly over the Easter weekend, could reveal Moscow's true intentions. Quote, if a full ceasefire truly takes hold, Ukraine proposes extending it beyond Easter Day on April 20th, Zelensky said on Telegram. Quote, that will reveal Russia's true intentions, as 30 hours are enough for headlines, but not for genuine confidence-building measures, unquote. Zelensky added that, according to military reports, Russian assaults and artillery fire continued along parts of the 1,000-kilometer-long front line. In response to the ceasefire announcement, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha said that Kyiv had, in March, quote, agreed unconditionally to the U.S. proposal of a full interim ceasefire for 30 days, which Russia rejected. Quote, Putin has now made statements about his alleged readiness for a ceasefire, 30 hours instead of 30 days, Sybiha continued, writing on X. Quote, unfortunately, we have had a long history of his statements not matching his actions, unquote. Putin's ceasefire announcement came after U.S. President Donald Trump on Friday said negotiations between Ukraine and Russia are, quote, coming to a head, and insisted that neither side is, quote, playing him in his push to end the grinding 3-year war. The two sides, meanwhile, exchanged hundreds of prisoners of war on Saturday. Russia's Ministry of Defense said that 246 Russian service members were returned from Ukraine, and 31 wounded Ukrainian POWs were transferred in exchange for 15 wounded Russian soldiers in need of urgent medical care. Zelensky said that 277 Ukrainian warriors, quote unquote, have returned home from Russian captivity. Go away, AP Papa. Both sides thanked the United Arab Emirates for their mediation. Most of the Ukrainians freed in the latest prisoner exchange are young people born after 2000, Ukraine's coordination headquarters for the treatment of prisoners of war said Friday. Okay. Outside a hospital in Ukraine's North Chernihiv region, where recently freed POWs were brought after the exchange at the border, dozens of relatives stood waiting. Among them was 48-year-old Natalia Lovenchuk, who had rushed towards the bus the moment it arrived. She hadn't seen her son in 3 years since he was captured during the battle for Mariupol in the spring of 2022. Her son, 23-year-old Ihor Lovnishuk, lost about 40 kilograms or 88 pounds in captivity. Quote, it still doesn't feel real, he said softly. We're not really here yet. We all made it back, but we're still not here. His mother, overcome with emotion and embracing her son, issued a plea. Quote, we call on the entire world, on every country, help us bring our boys home, unquote. Thousands of POWs remain in captivity. The exchange is the 4th this year and the 63rd since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. Okay, since the outbreak of the war, a total of 4,552 Ukrainians, both military and civilians, have been returned from captivity. This is a long article. Holy cats. We're almost done. Russia says its forces have retaken nearly all of Kursk. Nearly all? Okay. Russia's defense ministry said Saturday its forces pushed Ukrainian troops from the village of Oleshnia, one of their last remaining footholds in Russia's Kursk region, where the Ukrainians staged a surprise incursion last year. Gerasimov said Saturday in a report to Putin, quoted by Russian state media, that Russia had retaken nearly all of the territory from Ukrainian forces. And yada, yada, yada. Okay. So, is Russia going to extend the ceasefire past Easter? No. That's my prediction. No. Is the war going to end during Trump's presidency? I don't know. I don't know how much longer Russia can keep up this pace, but how much they're willing to lose. But I guess Putin's looking at the long term. I guess it's like, well, if we reclaim the land now, it won't be unreclaimed for generations. So, and most of the people dying are not even Russians from like the elite side of the country. It's mostly people on the outlying regions and the poor and criminals and so on and so forth. So unless or until he actually starts having to recruit from within Moscow for soldiers and such, or start press ganging people into there, and it affects the actual families and oligarchs and so on in core Russian society, it'll probably go on quite a while. Chicago Mike, thank you so much. Sorry, I don't trust Putin or Zelensky. Is there any way that either country can get new? I couldn't finish writing that sentence with a straight face. Yeah, I know. The most anybody can hope for, and this this does go back to my previous statement, but it's just a matter of fact. The most anybody can hope for is that there is regime change because of natural causes, because Putin's not getting any younger. But the idea that anybody who would succeed him, one way or the other, either through health issues or elsewise, wouldn't be just as hardcore as Putin is probably zero. Whatever. If there is a succession plan, and I don't know if there is, but if there is one, you can bet that it's some loyalist nutbag who's just on Putin's side who'd be taken over anyway. So that's short of... Because here's the thing, Russia's not going to admit defeat. Right. I mean, Putin's not going to surrender and say, now we give up. He's going to keep grinding away and grinding away. And Zelensky's still going to keep, fighting and fighting and fighting. But Ukraine, I mentioned this before, during the debates, there was a question that was posed before Trump, I think it was at the ABC debate, about do you support Ukraine winning the war? I'm paraphrasing slightly, but winning the war was in there somewhere. And I remember at the time, I think I was on Sinatra's channel, we were watching it, and I thought, what do you mean winning the war? Do you think Ukrainian soldiers are going to be marching through Moscow as they conquer all of Russia or something? The most Ukraine can do is hold Russia back as long as possible, but they can't win the war. They can only survive long enough for a brokered peace to take place if they don't get completely bowled over and taken over. So... yeah, there's really only a couple of options for this ending. And almost all of them require a brokered peace. Where Russia's going to get some land at Ukraine. Ukraine's going to be slightly smaller than their security guarantees that might only last 10 years. But it's 10 years that you can wait for, hopefully, again, nature to take its course and a new leader popping up in Russia that may be more amenable to negotiation or something else. That's probably the best you can hope for. And I know I'm simplifying global politics and things down to a second grade science, but that's just my layman's interpretation of things. Mike Savage, yep, Putin has got people around him that agree with him on Ukraine. One of those is most likely to succeed him unless succession goes bloody. Yeah, that's really it. So, brokered peace. Some kind of agreement that for a time allows Russia to save face and regroup while they prepare for whatever their next move is going to be of expansion and conquest in the future. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else you could hope for at this point. Let's move on to, how about... Oh, that's technically a DEI story. I can't do that now. See, I've got a whole different series for DEI stories. I'll have to save that one. I'll save that one for Monday, which is just tomorrow. Well, won't have to wait long. But let's talk about this. This was several days ago. I didn't see a whole lot of press on this or a whole lot of people talking about it, but I think this is kind of a worrying thing. U.S. Justice Department disbands crypto enforcement team, citing Trump order. Why? There is so much criminality and scamming and front running and pump and dumping in crypto. Why would you do this? I can think of a couple of reasons, not least of which that both Trump and his wife have started their own crypto coins of questionable ethicality, let's say, if not legality. But anyway, moving on. The U.S. Justice Department is disbanding its National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team and ordering prosecutors to narrow crypto investigations to focus on drug cartels and terrorist groups, according to a memo seen by Reuters. So your everyday white-collar Bernie Madoff type? Whatever. It's fine. The memo from a Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, sent out to employees late on Monday night, again, this is about almost 2 weeks ago, accused former Democratic President Joe Biden's administration of pursuing, quote, a reckless strategy of regulation by prosecution of the digital asset sector. Yeah, because, what happened to Sam Bankman-Fried was totally, shouldn't have happened. Yeah, FTX, it's fine. It's fine. All these other, crypto scams. I mean, they weren't attached to any kind of terrorist organization, so whatever. The unit known as NCET or NECET, had launched in February 2020. It launched in February of 2022 as part of the administration's bid to combat fraud and illicit finance, investigated and coordinated cases, including one against Binance and its founder, Changpeng Zhao, who pleaded guilty to violating laws designed to prevent money laundering. Yeah, but I mean, it's just money laundering. It's just millions of dollars of investor money. Who cares? It's fine. As long as he wasn't part of a terrorist organization. But under President Donald Trump, whose family is building its own crypto enterprise, the U.S. government has been reversing course on crypto. The Republican promised to make the United States the crypto capital of the planet. That is, I remember him saying that. I don't really feel like that's something it's a comfortable place to be. Going forward, Blanche said, the department will prioritize investigations into, quote, individuals who victimize digital asset investors, or those who use digital assets in furtherance of criminal offenses such as terrorism, narcotics and human trafficking, organized crime, hacking, and cartel and gang financing. Well, okay, organized crime, if I'm part of a network or an organization that does a pump and dump kind of scheme on investors, is that not organized crime? What? Any ongoing investigations inconsistent with this new policy should be closed, Blanche wrote. A Justice Department spokesperson could not be immediately reached for comment. Blanche cited one of Trump's executive orders as the basis for his directive. That executive order calls for the government to help ensure that both individuals and private sector companies can access, quote, open blockchain networks without persecution, unquote. Just writ large? I guess so. Trump, who courted the sector on the 2024 campaign trail, has called for easing crypto regulations. Since he took office, regulators have begun swiftly rolling back the government's efforts to rein in the industry. The Securities and Exchange Commission, the top U.S. markets regulator, has refocused its own crypto enforcement team and paused or altogether walked away from high-profile cases many thought the agency was winning. A U.S. banking regulator last month told banks they could engage in some crypto activities. The Deputy Attorney General's Monday memo said the Justice Department would stop targeting virtual currency exchanges, offline wallet and services known as mixers and tumblers designed to make crypto transactions anonymous for, quote, acts of their end users or unwitting violations of regulations, unquote. Yeah, tumblers and mixers. Let's see. What do you do with your dirty clothes when you put them into a machine that tumbles and mixes? Oh, it's called laundry. Blanche, one of President Trump's former criminal defense attorneys, was confirmed last month in the number 2 role at the Justice Department. In his memo, he ordered prosecutors not to charge regulatory violations under federal banking, securities, and commodities laws unless there is evidence that the company or individual willfully violated licensing or registration requirements. So if I'm legally licensed, then that allows me to avoid any auditing or investigation for potential actions I take that might be questionable, but I've got my license, so it makes it okay? What? Crypto is a sector in which Trump and his family now have a stake. Reuters previously reported that the Trump family has a claim on 75% of net revenues from token sales by World Liberty Financial, a crypto venture. Ahead of his inauguration, Trump also launched a crypto token. The companies behind the meme coins, Trump and Melania, for First Lady Melania Trump, said they are not investments or securities, but are an, quote, expression of support, unquote. They're not investments or securities, so I'm putting money into this with no notion that it's going to increase in value? Okay. I don't know. The phrase conflict of interest seems to come to mind here. But maybe compounded interest is more, talks louder or something. Kay Roberts, there's still the Treasury Department with the Cybercom task forces pursuing national security cases. This seems to be a domestic DOJ capability. True. Maybe. Although crypto is international and it's on the web and stuff and things. I don't know. I guess we'll see. I think Scribe has a touch of the TDS. Because it seems shady. I don't know. I idolize Donald Trump in everything that he does. I don't idolize any particular individual in everything that they do. I agree with him on some positions that he's taken, like on border security and DEI and such. But that doesn't mean he's immune from criticism or something. And if any criticism of the administration equates to TDS, then I don't know. I guess the bar has been lowered. But then I guess I've been touched by TDS since 2016 because I've had plenty of complaints about Trump since 2016. So anyway, what else do we got here? We can't. That's the DEI thing. Can't really do that. Let's see. What's this one? Oh yeah. Speaking of immigration, I guess I do have one story about Abrego Garcia. Senator Chris Van Hollen argues Trump administration's actions in Abrego Garcia case threaten everybody's rights. Do they, though? I mean, it has been manipulated a little bit in the sense that, well, by declaring MS-13 a terrorist organization, that changes all sorts of things about this guy's rights as an MS-13 member. So, do tell. Senator Chris Van Hollen, who recently met with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, I thought he was dead, slammed the Trump administration for its handling of the Maryland man's mistaken deportation. They keep pushing this. He is a citizen of El Salvador. He was in the country illegally for 14 years. I mean, even if he wasn't an MS-13 gang member, etc., he'd be completely in line to be deported back to his home country, which he has been. So, I don't know, guys. You keep pushing on this, and it just doesn't have a whole lot to it. I mean, if you want to bring him all the way back here just so we can send him all the way back there again. Mistaken deportation. Telling CNN it poses a threat to the constitutional rights of everybody in America. Oh, is everybody in America an illegal immigrant with MS-13 ties? Oh, okay. Van Hollen, in an interview which aired Sunday on CNN, argued Abrego Garcia's due process rights are being ignored as he remains in El Salvador after being mistakenly deported. Was he mistakenly deported, though? I mean, ultimately. Quote, if we deny the constitutional rights of this one man, it threatens the constitutional rights of everybody in America, the Maryland Democrat told CNN's Dana Bash on State of the Union. Van Hollen traveled last week to El Salvador, where he was first denied a meeting with Abrego Garcia. The senator was ultimately allowed to meet Thursday evening with the Maryland father. Maryland father? Because he's a Marylander, you see. Who described being traumatized at El Salvador's notorious Vacate prison, according to Van Hollen. Oh, well, prisons are a traumatizing experience, it's true. In a news conference Friday upon his return to the U.S., Van Hollen said Abrego Garcia was moved from the maximum security prison into another facility where, quote, conditions are better, unquote. Well, why would we do that? Oh, wait, it's not us, it's El Salvador. Okay. Though the White House has admitted that Abrego Garcia, an undocumented immigrant from El Salvador, and roll credits. It's just, oh my gosh. Mistakenly deported. Okay, an undocumented immigrant from El Salvador whom a judge ordered in 2019 could not be removed to his home country over fear of persecution Persecution by who again? Last I heard it was a rival gang, which suggests what about Abrego Garcia's affiliations? Was mistakenly deported last month. President Donald Trump's administration and the El Salvadoran government have said he will not be returned to the U.S. Well, he was not supposed to be here in the first place. When asked by Bash whether Van Hollen would be okay with Abrego Garcia's deportation if it goes through due process, the senator said, quote, I'm okay with whatever the rule of law dictates, unquote. Van Hollen also brushed off criticism, including from California Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom, that Democrats should focus on a more viable issue such as the economy rather than Abrego Garcia's deportation. Politically speaking, it would be wise. Quote, I don't think it's ever wrong to fight for the constitutional rights of one person, because if we give up on one person's rights, we threaten everybody's rights, Van Hollen said, adding, quote, anyone who is not prepared to stand up and fight for the Constitution doesn't deserve to lead, unquote. Okay. In the country illegally, a member of a terrorist organization, and he was already supposed to be deported anyway. Okay. I mean, if this is the hill you want to die on. The Trump administration is embroiled in a legal back and forth over Abrego Garcia's deportation and has remained defiant that it will not bring back the deported man. Well, there you go. And again, if there is some way to force the Trump administration to bring this guy back, then do it. Did that happen? Let's find out. The senator said the Trump administration is not complying with court orders, alleging the White House hasn't made efforts to facilitate his return. Quote, facilitate does not mean you do nothing, Van Hollen told Bash, referring to the Supreme Court's ruling that ordered the Trump administration to, quote, facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia, but stopped short of mandating it. Yeah, how? And here's why. If they mandated it, what would Trump be expected to do? Hey, President of El Salvador, give us back this guy. President of El Salvador says, no, I'm not going to. And then what? We send in SEAL Team 6 to break the guy out of jail to bring him back home just so we can deport him again? What do you want to have happen, Van Hollen? The president of El Salvador said he wouldn't give the guy back even if asked. So it's done. Right, wrong, or otherwise, it's done. And he wasn't here in the country illegally to begin with, so ultimately, he would have been kicked out. Van Hollen shared that during his trip, employees of the U.S. Embassy in the capital of San Salvador, said they have not received, quote, any direction from the Trump administration to help facilitate his release. What do you suggest when the president of El Salvador says we're not letting him go? That's kind of the long and the short, isn't it? The White House has also attempted to paint Abrego Garcia as a violent and dangerous criminal, alleging that he is a member of the MS-13 gang. Well, what does he have tattooed on his knuckles? Abrego Garcia's family and lawyers have denied he's a gang member. Well, I mean, if anybody is to be trustworthy on this, it's obviously his family and his lawyers. Asked by Bash whether Van Hollen asked Abrego Garcia whether he has or previously has any ties to MS-13, the senator said he did not, quote, because I know what his answer is, unquote. Oh, okay. Quote, what he told me was he was sad and traumatized that he was being in prison because he has committed no crimes, Van Hollen added. The Maryland senator also stressed that the Trump administration has not provided any evidence of Abrego Garcia's alleged gang ties in court and said it is using the claims to, quote, change the subject, unquote. Okay, Senator Van Hollen, I don't know if you know this. You probably don't. I mean, you're only a senator. Someone in the country illegally can be arrested, detained, and deported even if they committed no other crime. Even if they're not tied to a gang. Because they're in the country illegally. Nobody's denying that he was in the country illegally. They keep calling him a Maryland man. I don't know. It just feels like the inevitable conclusion of all of this hubbub would just still be him being deported. Now, whether or not he would end up in that prison, I can't say. But not in America is the ultimate conclusion for this guy's story, one way or the other. So hemming and hawing over this at this point seems to me pointless. Quote, what Donald Trump is trying to do here is change the subject, Van Hollen said. Quote, the subject at hand is that he and his administration are defying a court order to give Abrego Garcia his due process rights. Senator Van Hollen, what at this point do you expect Trump to do? Again, do you want them to send SEAL Team 6 into this prison and break this guy out to bring him back to the United States to go through the same deportation process he would have otherwise and kick him out again back to El Salvador? Because that's what will happen. If they were to go through that motion, that's all that would happen. And you going down there and breaking bread and having margaritas with this guy, I don't know. That's going to be on every anti-Chris Van Hollen ad in the next election you can imagine. Oy. Oy. Let's see. That gang hazes its members like the mafia. It's for life, and he knew of crimes committed, but he's an illegal alien. Yeah. Yes, it's not... MS-13's no joke. You look up the stories of this gang and what they do and how they do it and everything else. This is not some sort of like, oh, just some friendly neighborhood association or something. No. And having MS-13 tattooed onto your knuckles, I don't know. That seems like a bit more of a commitment than just, I just knew somebody. They prevented the guy from going into the prison at first. Well, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's kind of like, I don't have any say in it one way or the other. And the guy was living illegally in the country for a decade and a half nearly and was doing a whole bunch of other hinky stuff. Here's the thing. The restraining order his wife put out on him for spousal abuse, let's just say in some different universe, Abrego Garcia was in the country as a DACA recipient or as a visa holder, as we talked about visas before. Any one of the number of things that he was caught for or had restraining orders put against him elsewise would put him either completely at having his stay here terminated or at least put under risk. But he wasn't here legally in the first place. So it doesn't really matter. I don't know, maybe I'm just too much of a hardliner on this. I don't know. Fostonia, thank you so much again. It is amazing the framing these journalists do. Just can't bring themselves to describe the individual as an illegal alien, even if they add alleged. Yeah. No one is denying this guy has been in the country illegally, and yet somehow, just like in years past, that doesn't count against his character at all or his being removed from the country in the first place. Like, oh no, I mean, you see, guys, if you avoid law enforcement detecting you for a long enough time, it really doesn't matter. Oh, but look, he started a family here and he got married. Oh, you can't deport this guy. He's part of our community now. Just because you caught him after all these years of him committing a crime perpetually, it's travesty if you try to like remove him from his family or take him out of the country. No. And obviously the same thing happens with people who, get away with murder for decades or something. I mean, they avoided law enforcement for 10, 20, 30 years. They started a family in the meantime. You can't take them away from their family just because you caught them for having committed a crime a long time ago. I mean, they've been perfectly good citizens since then. It doesn't matter. What idiocy is this? Would any other country tolerate this either? It's like, I'm in your country illegally. I've gotten away with it for several years. You can't touch me.
Oh, I guess you're right. Yep, no, you sure outsmarted us, so I guess you just get to stay here.
Yeah, nonsense. Mexico would kick me out if I tried to pull that. Give me a break. Let's see. One more story. I'll save that other one for DEI Death Watch tomorrow. So I didn't read this whole thing, but I got a whiff of sob story. And this is a couple of weeks old now. This is from the end of March. And so this might have been a prelude to the visa stories I talked about earlier, but let's find out. Columbia University student ran from Homeland Security, but still doesn't know why they came for her. Why did you run? Ranjani Srinivasan. I'm doing my best, guys. Was busy talking to an advisor at Columbia University when the federal agents first came to her door. The day before, she'd got an unexpected email that her student visa had been canceled and she was trying to get information. Okay, so in this case, she received notice, and so she had prior notice. Quote, "It was my roommate who heard the knock and immediately recognized it as law enforcement." How do you recognize a knock as law enforcement? Okay. Because I can say her first name easier than her last name, I'm going to say Ranjani. I'm just going to say Ranjani. Ranjani told CNN, quote, "She asked them, 'Do you have a warrant?' And they had to say no." Yeah, because again, ICE does not need a warrant to remove somebody or detain someone who they suspect is in the country illegally. This is established law. This isn't like some kind of thing. They're not violating the law by not having a warrant. They are not required to have a warrant. It's one of those special things that ICE has that many other departments do not. Quote, "I was stunned and scared," she said. "I remember telling the advisor, 'ICE is at my door and you're telling me I'm fine? Do something,'" unquote. They returned another day, also without a warrant. Again, they are not required to have one. Matters escalated when they came a third time with a judge's permission to enter the Columbia apartment. By then, she had already left the country. Okay, so I haven't done anything wrong, but she self-deports. The end. That's the end of the story, right? Okay. The biggest question for Rajani is why they came at all. All right. Ranjani had renewed her student visa just a few months earlier, being granted permission for another 5 years in the United States, more than enough time to complete her PhD in urban planning. She was no stranger to immigration rules, having won a Fulbright scholarship to Harvard University for her master's degree and then returning to her native India for the requisite 2 years after. Her dream acceptance at Columbia's Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation coincided with the beginning of the COVID pandemic, so she started her studies in Chennai, India, before making it to New York City. Okay. By last month, the end of her doctorate was almost in sight. She was grading papers for the students she was teaching and fretting over a deadline for a journal. Far from her mind was a night almost a year before when she got caught up in a crowd. Oh, okay. That evening in April 2024, she'd been trying to get back to her university apartment for a staff picnic when she was swept up in a police operation against a crowd protesting Israel's war with Hamas in Gaza, she said. Mistakenly arrested. Ranjani had only just returned to the U.S., having been away from Colombia since before the war began, and generated passionate protests. Quote, "We didn't really know what was going to happen that day," she said. "The whole perimeter of the neighborhood had been barricaded." Unquote. Unable to prove she lived there, she wasn't allowed to go to her street, so she ended up circling the neighborhood looking for a way through, she told CNN. Why weren't you able to prove that you lived there? You didn't have a student ID or... Okay. Quote, "They kept shifting the barricades, and then I think around 200 cops descended, and they kind of charged at us. It was absolute confusion. People were screaming, falling, people were running out of the way," she said. Too small to force her way through the melee, she ended up in a large group of people detained by the police. She just ended up. Okay. She said she was... So wait, is the only source of information on these events her? After she fled the country? Okay. She said she was held with the crowd for several hours but never fingerprinted or booked for an arrest. All right. She was given 2 pink-colored summonses by the New York Police Department, one for obstructing pedestrian traffic and the other for failure to disperse, before being released. A lawyer working pro bono for a number of the students got summonses dismissed even before she had to appear in court. That means there should be no record against her, and as far as Ranjani was concerned, she could forget the whole thing. She did not report the dismissed summonses on her visa renewal. Ahem. Pardon me, I had to wet my whistle there for a second. She did not report the dismissed summonses on her visa renewal. Okay. When asked why Ranjani's visa was revoked, the Department of Homeland Security said in a statement, quote, "These citations were not disclosed," unquote. Okay. Well, roll credits. That was never mentioned to Ranjani when she was told her visa had been taken away. Well, you know, you never did actually speak to the people who were there to deport you or anything, did you? Because you ran away. You got a form letter telling you your visa had been revoked. Yeah. "I did not mean to deceive anyone," she said. You failed to report legal activity on your status when you renewed your visa. If I made a mistake, I would be happy to clarify it to the state. Then why did you run? But she was never given the chance. So, when she was renewing her visa, and it had that little box there where you can report any particular legal mishaps or anything, she chose not to mention what happened to her, regardless of those things having been overturned, which you could put on there. If you made a mistake, okay. A punitive dragnet. According to local so-called sanctuary laws, federal authorities should not have even known Ranjani had ever been detained, according to her lawyer. Well, so what? They shouldn't have even known that she had summonses on her. Well, they did. Quote, "New York City is supposed to have protections in place to prevent people who don't commit crimes, who haven't been in any kind of trouble, from getting caught in this sort of punitive dragnet that the administration is implementing here," he said. Well, I hate to tell you this. The federal laws supersede New York City's sanctuary policies. I don't know what to tell you. Quote, "But clearly the federal government has access to the summons database, probably, or to other data that allows them to see even when people aren't fingerprinted, even when people don't have any criminal case, even when the only allegation against them is entirely dismissed," unquote. Okay, I don't have a visa renewal form in front of me, but I'll bet you dollars to donuts there is some section on there that says, "Do you have anything you'd like to declare?" And if you don't do that, and there is something you should have, then your credibility goes completely out the window. What else are you lying about? Okay, again, the story kind of solves itself if you read it. No one from DHS, the NYPD, or Columbia University responded to CNN requests about how federal authorities became aware of this case. Well, but clearly the federal government has access to the summons database or to other data. There's a summons database? Do you mean that there's a database that lists all the summonses? Even those that have eventually been dismissed, perhaps? There's still a record of it existing? And if they cross-reference that with someone's visa renewal form and they don't list that they were summoned, etc., even if it was dismissed, does that mean that they were withholding information and lying on their federal form? I mean, guys, what is the mystery here? When asked about Rajani by CNN at a news conference, New York City Mayor Eric Adams said, quote, "I'll say it over and over again. New York City Police Department, they do not collaborate for civil enforcement," unquote. He said he would look into it, but his office has not got back to CNN because there's nothing to investigate. There's no mystery here. She lied on her visa application by omission, and Trump has got a zero tolerance policy on these visas right now. She got notified it was coming, and she fled the country. The end. She saved us all a whole bunch of taxpayer money. For Rajani, the sudden escalation was alarming. The sudden escalation. Okay, she says she had attended protests in her time in the U.S. Oh. But as much to experience American culture as to exercise free speech. Were you chanting from the river to the sea? But she was seeing others being detained under orders from the Trump administration and was afraid. Well, quote, you keep going back thinking, have I done something? And there are no answers there, she said. You lied on your application. She knew Columbia University graduate student and U.S. permanent resident Mahmoud Khalil was arrested and put in detention in Louisiana, but did not want to take that risk. Okay, well, then you did everybody a favor by self-deporting. Quote, it was very clear to her, rightly so, that this government would stop at nothing to pursue her, even though their pursuit of her was based on nothing, Yaffa said. Rajani went to LaGuardia Airport and took a flight to Canada. Government officers, now in possession of a warrant, went back to her apartment. 4 agents, 3 with their faces covered, spent several minutes inside. They asked Rajani's roommate to stay in her room. Quote, if not, you can leave, one agent said, as heard on a video recording taken by the roommate that CNN has viewed. Okay. Another said he would explain the warrant, quote, if you would like to put down your phone, unquote. Quote, we have a warrant to search this premises for electronics, documents related to Rajani Srivavan, continued the officer who identified himself as coming from Homeland Security. As the roommate recorded, did you get enough video? He added. The officers left, taking nothing for evidence. A DHS news release heralded Rajani's departure, but did not mention unreported summonses, instead alleging she was, quote, involved in activities supporting Hamas, unquote. Well, whether she was or she wasn't, she's gone now. The release was headlined, quote, Columbia University student whose visa was revoked for supporting Hamas and terrorist activities used CBP Home app to self-deport, unquote. The app introduced in the days before, CBP Home app. The app's been around for years. What do you mean introduced the day before? What? Oh, wait, no, that was CBP 1. Pardon me. CBP Home must be something separate. Okay. Took me a second there. I was like, wait a minute. So, yeah, we've been talking about CBP, the app, ever since Title 42 got revoked or whatever. Okay. Anyway, it includes a feature for immigrants without legal permission to be in the U.S. to inform the government they intend to depart. Oh, okay. There was also a damning post on X from Secretary Kristi Noem, quote, it is a privilege to be granted a visa to live and study in the United States of America. When you advocate for violence and terrorism, that privilege could be revoked and you should not be in this country. I'm glad to see one of the Columbia University terrorist sympathizers use the CBP Home app to self-deport, unquote. Yaffe said the statements about Rajani were, quote, absolutely false. Quote, she has basically been a private person. She said that she attended a bunch of protests. Okay? Pursuing her studies and pursuing her career, he said. She's been a student, and they not only took that away from her in the sense of forcing her out of the country, but they also took away her privacy, obviously, and made her the huge public face of this campaign of repression that they're undertaking with the deliberate desire, as the administration has said, to send a message to other students, unquote. No, send a message to other visa holders to stay within the lines of your gift of being here. Rajani also takes issues with how she was portrayed. Well, since you didn't decide to stick around to plead your case, she denies using the CBP Home app, saying it wasn't on her phone, and anyway, her device was almost dead at the airport. Quote, I didn't even know the app existed. I just left, she said. Oh, okay. Well, 6 of one thing, half a dozen of the other. As for her politics, she said, quote, "I'm not a terrorist sympathizer. I'm not a pro-Hamas activist. I'm just literally a random student. It just seems very strange they would spend so much vast resources in persecuting me," unquote. Well, I guess you should feel special. For now, she's trying to stay optimistic about getting back to her life and doctorate. She was due to complete it in May. She hopes somehow Columbia can re-enroll her, so in 5 years of study with them is not for naught. So her 5 years of study with them is not for naught. Not for naught. But she's unhappy with the actions of the Ivy League school, which has made policy changes apparently to address demands from the Trump administration since she left. The interim president of Columbia University stepped down the following week. Quote, "I do think that Columbia should have protected me against this. I think that that's part of their mandate," she said. Is it? Quote, "When you're attracting these international students to come and study at Columbia, when you go and do outreach all across the world to attract the best and the brightest, you have a mandate to protect them," unquote. From the federal government? Okay. Quote, "She might be an expert in planning, but Ranjani is not trying to look too far ahead and set on two goals." Okay. Quote, "I want my PhD. I want my name cleared," unquote. Well, let's see. As far as I can tell, I don't know what to say. You say you attended protests. You wouldn't say which ones. You were just accidentally swept up in this thing at this time, says her and her lawyers. You had summonses applied to you that you did not report to the U.S. government. I don't know. And of course, CNN did not do any or spend any shoe leather to find out, did she attend or was she one of the people who were chanting "from the river to the sea" and so on? I don't know, guys. I don't know. But there you go. Yeah, a lot of visas being overturned, but not MasterCard. You can always depend on MasterCard. Jill Power, she's not even paying the $80,000 a year for tuition. She got it other means. Yeah, I'm sure she's doing very poorly right now. I'm sure she'll be okay. Doesn't seem that bright. I love it. I love when CNN does such in-depth investigation to find out what's the truth of the matter. The government says X, she says Y. Oh, well, she must be a victim. Eh? Oh, by the way, she lied on her visa renewal application, but that's no big deal. I mean, if you or I were to lie on a federal document, I'm sure everything would go swimmingly for us, right? Thank you, Chicago Mike. Question, why did the interim president of Columbia step down? I think I heard, but I don't recall offhand. I suppose I could look that up. I do have the access to all information on the planet. Let's see. Columbia president resigns. Let's see. March 28th. Oh, that's a. Is there a story I can go to that isn't going to ask me to subscribe to their channel or their page or something? Okay. Politico, are you one of those? I guess we'll find out. Okay, let's take a look. Per Chicago Mike's request, which I take as a sponsored request. Yes, that's what I'll say. A super chat is a sponsored request. Columbia University president resigns as Trump administration cracks down on campus anti-Semitism. I wonder if this is going to bring up the... See, there was an article earlier this week. I wish I'd saved it for this show. That was complaining about Trump threatening to take away the tax-exempt status of Harvard University. On the basis that they were promoting an ideology or something else or some kind of discriminatory philosophy. And the author of the article said something to the effect that Trump had unlocked this power for himself. And I might be paraphrasing only slightly, but the word unlocked was in there somewhere. And I recalled that, no, divesting a university of their federal funding and, privileges on the basis that that university was promoting a discriminatory or some kind of other illegal ideology or policy or something else didn't happen with Trump. It was a Supreme Court decision back in like 1983 or something with Bob Jones University. So I was like, yeah, it's because as we know, history began when Trump took office again. Nothing took place before Trump came into office. Every power and lever that Trump is pulling, he just manifested into existence out of whole cloth in the last 2 months, as we know. Anyway, Columbia University's interim president resigned Friday, becoming the Ivy League school's second embattled leader to vacate the position as the school remains the target of President Donald Trump and other Republicans over its handling of pro-Palestinian student activism or pro-terrorist organization advocacy, depending on how you want to phrase it, I guess. The president, Katrina Armstrong, resigned effective immediately, and the school board's chair, journalist Claire Shipman, has been appointed interim president. Armstrong had replaced Columbia's former president, Minouche Shafik, who resigned in August. Quote, Dr. Armstrong accepted the role of interim president at a time of great uncertainty for the university and worked tirelessly to promote the interests of our community, unquote, David Greenwald, chair of Columbia's Board of Trustees, said in a statement. Quote, Katrina has always given her heart and soul to Columbia. We appreciate her service and look forward to her continued contributions to the university, he added. But why did she do so? The extraordinary move comes a week after Columbia agreed to a set of 9 demands by the Trump administration in order to open talks to unfreeze $400 million in research funding, which the administration had imposed over allegations of anti-Semitism on campus. Trump's Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism welcomed Armstrong's resignation, calling it, quote, an important step towards advancing negotiations as set forth in the preconditional understanding reached last Friday in a statement. What were the 9 demands? Let's see. Do we have a list? I'd like a list. Where's the list? Are you going to give me the list? You won't even give me in an article... In an article that says Columbia agrees to Trump's demands in effort to get back federal funding, they don't even list the demands. Okay. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Trump's Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism welcomed Armstrong's resignation, calling it an important step. The school is under multiple federal investigations. And it is also a top target of Trump's immigration crackdown, targeting students involved in pro-Palestinian activism, including Mahmoud Khalil, a former Columbia graduate student and green card holder currently being held in an immigration and customs enforcement facility. So again, our self-deporter, she was in there. In recent weeks, the State Department has targeted multiple other Columbia students with visas for deportation over alleged pro-Hamas sentiment, and the university has confirmed the presence of Department of Homeland Security agents on campus. Armstrong is the 4th Ivy League president to resign amid Republican pressures over the school's responses to pro-Palestinian student activism, or advocating for a terrorist organization. I'm sorry, as soon as you decide to put on a keffir and march down the street shouting from the river to the sea, you've crossed the line. I don't know. Anyway, last school year, the presidents of Harvard and the University of Pennsylvania stepped down after being grilled by the House Education panel. Yeah, that was some epic House testimony. Shafik, who also faced the panel's questioning, managed to hang on to her job through the end of the 2023-2024 academic year, but she received sharp criticism for her management of a student encampment that cast the campus into the center of the national political firestorm. It ended with a stunning display as New York Police Department officers dragged students out of an academic building they had occupied. It was a stunning display of taking people out of a public building that they were illegally holed up in. Yeah, I know. Armstrong later apologized to people hurt by the NYPD sweeps. All you poor activist terrorist-supporting criminals, I'm sorry. I want to apologize for the NYPD being too rough with you. If you cannot see the imbalance of priorities, I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to tell you. But There you are. Josh Hammond. Again, this all sounds like Orange Man bad. Someone call the ambulance. All depends on the situation, but yeah, in this case, it's kind of like, oh, all you poor criminals. I'm sorry the NYPD was enforcing the law on you. Faustonia Scribe has way more patience for these articles than I could muster, and he's really entertaining reading them to us. If I read this stuff, I would just end up pulling my hair out. Well, yeah, I mean, I have built up between CNN over, 4 years of Lords of the Night, I do have to thank Chris Cillizza. Our favorite former friend at CNN, Chris Cillizza, having to read his copy nearly every single night for 4 years has scarred my brain tissue. It really has. You know, it's almost like the scar tissue from like a flash fire or something. Like it's still there. It's like, but it's you touch it, you just can't feel it. It's just not there. And yet still occasionally I catch a specific word or phrase or mention of something that goes unmentioned again. Oh yeah, she lied on her federal document. They do have to mention, they mentioned that one line. She didn't mention this information on her federal document. Or the word traditionally. Not legally. Well, the government isn't legally required to do this, that, or the other. Students aren't legally entitled to stay in the country past the point of their visa being revoked. Just traditionally. Yeah, reading comprehension, looking for the details, what is said, what is unsaid, and the space in between. That's where you want to be. Jill Powers, it was always the PLO who have unilaterally rejected statehood and cooperation. Yeah. There was this, what was it called? There was this PBS documentary from many years ago. It's called An Elusive Peace. An Elusive Peace. And at this point, it's probably on YouTube or somewhere for free. You can find it on the PBS website or something. But it is an amazingly informative documentary. It talks about the struggles between Israel and the PLO and the Palestinians, running from the late Clinton administration, I think, up through the beginning of the Obama administration, something like that. And there's this amazing little story that has been forgotten by time, I think, at this point, where the leader of the PLO, whose his face is in front of me, his name escapes me. He's now dead. Why can't I remember his name? Arafat. That's right, Arafat. And I think it was the prime minister of Israel at the time. I think it was. Anyway, Mubarak? No, wait. Don't quote me on names. I'm terrible with names. Anyway, so the leader of the Palestinians and the leader of Israel, they both go to Camp David under invitation by President Clinton to try to work something out. And you see these two guys shaking hands and smiling and laughing and everything. And then this documentary tells you all of the behind-the-scenes stuff going on between Arafat and the leader of Israel. God, was it Rabin? Was it Yitzhak? No, it wasn't Yitzhak Rabin. It was, God, I forget. Anyway, whoever was leading Israel at the time of the end of Clinton's administration. Anyway, they went back and forth and back and forth. And amazingly, the leader of Israel kind of gave Arafat a big chunk of what he wanted. He's like, look, we'll both be supervisors over, Jerusalem, and you guys can have this, that, and the other. It was this amazing deal, like a once in a millennium sort of deal. It was everything Arafat wanted, except he wanted all of Jerusalem. Right? He didn't want to be part custodians or something. No, he wanted all of it. And so he rejected the deal. An amazing deal. A deal that could have set the groundwork for a future greater peace between these two groups. And he said, nah, not good enough. Couldn't think about setting an example or laying the foundation for what might be the future. No. I want everything I want right now, forever and ever and ever. Chicago Mike, Chris Cillizza and Harry Enton, who has, good gravy. I have seen more footage of Harry Enton giving percentile reports on Trump's popularity. I never thought little old Harry would rise to the ranks like that. Holy cats. Chris Cillizza's personal Igor is now a superstar of Schadenfreude over at CNN. It was something else. It was Ehud Barak. Okay, was it Barak? What did I say? Did I say Barak? Did I say something else? Anyway, whatever I said, that is the name Ehud Barak. And so, yeah, but if you want to like get just a whiff of the conflict, the hypocrisy on both sides of the equation when it comes to, Israel, Gaza, Palestine, etc., An Elusive Peace is an amazingly informative documentary. Obviously, many things have changed since it came out, but to see some of the history and what led up to current events and the personalities involved and the thinking behind it and the people at the levers of power, great documentary. So again, Elusive Peace. Look it up if you can find it. Anyway, I've gone on far longer than I thought I would. Blabbed about things I hadn't planned on, but hey, live TV, everybody. Speaking of live TV, barring something happening, you will find me tomorrow morning at 9:05 a.m. Pacific Time, noon 05 p.m. Eastern Time on Midnight's Edge in the Morning, where I'll be on the panel with Andre and Tom and hopefully Chris Brawley and Paul Chatto, and who knows who else will show up. You never know. We'll talk about the box office over the weekend, how much that Minecraft is still probably dominating everything, whether or not Batman 2 is being canceled. I think it is. The latest Star Wars news, all that good stuff. All that nerdy stuff. Also tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time will be the next installment of DEI Death Watch, where I'll bring up that story that I didn't read today, along with other stories about the downfall and or the doubling down of DEI. I'll have a link up to that either later today or early tomorrow. Also, do you know I have a Discord server? I have a Discord server. Would you like to join the Discord server? Link to the Discord server is in the chat right now. If you'd like to join the Discord server, click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me you are not a bot, have watched the stream, and have thus earned the right, the right, the privilege, the entitlement. I was doing really good there. I had my radio announcer, spiel down pretty good. I wasn't stumbling over my words. And then right then, my imperfection showed. Anyway, if you say the secret word, you'll become a member of the Discord server. And today's secret word is traditionally. Just say hello, traditionally, and I'll know that you watch the show. Outside of that, you can always find me here Thursday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for TED Excellence, where I'll take a look at another off-brand TED Talk for entertainment and enlightenment. Possible subject matter for next TEDx talk, or TED Excellence. Maybe, and I've got some options here, Beyond Borders, Art, Gender, and the Immigrant Experience. The Paradox of Sustaining Female Leadership in Animation. TikTok can solve every issue that pisses you off from your bedroom. Why gender inequity still exists and what to do about it. And lastly, the future needs your feminism, a message from tomorrow. Those are all possibilities, or none of them, because something else more interesting might come up in the meantime, but that's the kind of thing you can expect to find on TED Excellence, except for those nights where I decide to do something serious and it still turns into an absolute garbage pile. But anyway, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society donation page at the top of the chat box, thank you guys so much for your generosity. Very much appreciate it. On your way out, if you haven't done so already, please leave a like. And if you like this kind of thing, please share it out around the wonderful world of the World Wide Web, because you guys are the best algorithm. Everyone, hope you have a good rest of your Sunday. Happy Easter to those of you who celebrate. And hope you all have a good weekend left, a good week ahead of you. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.